2 is the sequel to what some people are referring to as a test game because it was released in the Orange Box, a game compilation that had two really big names at its head, Half-Life and Team Fortress 2. It's funny though because Portal was actually quite the success story and has now spawned its own fully featured game. In Portal 2, you take the helm of the female protagonist once again, and you find yourself waking up in yet another test facility. Wheatley, a new AI core, greets you and directs you through the beginnings of the game. It's at this point where you realize the damage that you've done to the old facility from the previous game. It's all overgrown and dirty, and things are always falling apart when you enter new areas. It might not seem like much, but this is actually pretty cool because there wasn't much to the first game aside from the purely sterilized white testing rooms and the tests themselves. Right away, we can tell that this game is going to be much different, just because of the introductions. It's also noteworthy to point out that there's a lot more environmental movement in this game. Instead of just having rooms there, rooms will manipulate themselves and create themselves on the fly, which is actually a really great effect. After a while things start up again, you're back to testing, and this is easily the best part of the entire game. The puzzles in this game start out pretty easy, reintroducing you to some familiar concepts like the companion cubes and buttons, but then it starts to introduce you to completely new ideas. Of course, these ideas are usually introduced one at a time, and you'll usually see them used in a couple different ways before having to mix and match them. Some of the newer puzzle elements include light rails, which are light paths that you can use to block turrets and walk across chasms with, different color paints that can drastically change the properties of any surface, and what I can only think of as push beams, this sort of anti-gravity field that you can use to manipulate the other puzzle elements. Of course, the star of the show remains the portal gun itself, a gun that shoots linking portals on surfaces creating a dimensional link. Without it, it would be impossible to complete any of the puzzles. But if you were looking for puzzle variety, then Portal 2 definitely has that for you. After you're introduced to everything once again, the tutorial ceases and the true game begins. Most of the game doesn't actually take place in the original testing facility. That's really just there to reintroduce you to everything. Most of the game takes place in the depths of the facility, what seems like miles below the original underground. You'll get much different playstyle and vibe from the game as you're working your way through a more industrial looking area. Without spoiling anything, you're introduced to a couple of new names, mainly that of Cave Johnson, the founder of Aperture Science, who takes on the role of your commentator for a little while. He's voiced by none other than J.K. Simmons and pulls off the role exceptionally well. GLaDOS is back, having survived the first game, if only barely, and she does hold a grudge. And this is what makes for a lot of the game's comedy. The game is so well written and the dialogue is performed so well that you'll actually think that this is more than a game at times. Punchlines and jokes are extremely well executed, and you'll be hard pressed to not laugh or at least give a chuckle after nearly every line of dialogue spoken.
Ah! Oh, for God's sake, they told me that if I ever turned this flashlight on, I would die. They told me that about everything. I mean, I don't even know why they bothered giving me this stuff if they didn't want me to use it. It's pointless. Mad.
Portal 2 also plays host to a cooperative mode, and in this completely separate side campaign you'll take on the role of some testing robots where you'll have to solve puzzles with a friend. You have different gestures to indicate where you want Portal to go, and of course it wouldn't be a modern game without some emotes, but the complexity of the puzzles almost demands that you can talk to your buddy, or else you'll end up getting a tad bit frustrated. The co-op puzzles are also quite a bit more challenging, increasing the difficulty because instead of just getting yourself to the end, you don't have to get two people there. But you do have two heads to work with, so you and your partner can bounce some ideas off each other, and the harder the puzzles get, the better you feel when you complete them anyways. I'd say the mode is really there to just add a lot more game time to the overall experience, but some people will like this mode more because all you're really doing is the puzzle solving and no story. Some of the puzzles can also get quite a bit more challenging than anything in the single player, having to think with 4 portals instead of just 2. More puzzles also require precise timing, which can be an issue because you can feel like you know exactly what to do and how to do it, but you can't get past it because of the lag or bad timing. But this is really a minor complaint for what is probably the greatest new addition to the franchise. Portal 2 is actually significantly longer than the original game, which could probably be completed in about 3 hours. This game, however, doubles that time pretty easily, and if you include the co-op, can probably triple it. But it's always hard to say with games like this, where game time can depend on if you're good at solving puzzles or not. If you end up getting stuck on one part of a puzzle, or you just didn't see what you were supposed to be doing, Portal 2 can kind of become a little frustrating. You really have to look closely at your environment, because if you end up missing one little thing, that thing will inevitably be the thing that gets you stuck, and being stuck for a long time can really detract from the fun aspect. Portal 2 will also make you feel completely stupid and smart at the same time. I myself didn't get stuck too often, but when I did, it was usually because I was just overthinking something extremely simple. In fact, most of the game mechanics themselves are not hard to understand. It's when you start combining everything in the later parts of the game that really add to the difficulty. But it will also end up making you feel like a badass when you finally solve them. So yeah, that's Portal 2 in a nutshell. If you're into puzzle solving, then you should immediately go out and buy this game. If you love video games with comedy aspects, then you'll find no better contender than this. The only downside I can think of is that the game ended too soon again. This game is easily going to be one of the best games of this year and definitely deserves to be played. Hey guys, thanks for watching my video. Be sure to check out my other videos. I'll have linked here. If you want to see more Portal 2, there's a full Let's Play on my channel, so you can go check that out too. And yeah, take it easy.